What an incredible first semi-final, as we have China represented in the finals since 2014 in a singles individual tournament in Hearthstone. And it is RNGLeaoh, the first woman that we've had on the global stage in this fashion. Incredible stuff, but that is just the beginning as we have a second semi-final underway. But before we go into it, let's go ahead and check in with our casting desk. We have Gallon and Hunter. Normally, you guys are Grandmasters competing, but you're casting this week. And how's casting been for you, Gallon?
It's a little bit stressful. This is actually my first time on a live stage and also my first time hosting. So hopefully I didn't do a terrible job imitating you on this stage.
Well, not exactly like me, but I like the tie, buddy.
All right.
Casper, 2019 World Champion, known for topping every division in Grandmaster and winning everything. What's it like casting at BlizzCon?
Yeah, it's really something special, as also, Gallon. This is my first ever live event, so a pretty big deal for me. And I feel more and more nervous every single game. And it's really something else, just being live all the time and people being able to hear everything you're saying, right? So
yeah, it's weird.
It's a lot of pressure, and I hope I'm dealing well with it.
More pressure than competing on the big stage?
Well, personally, I feel like it now because it's less experience with it, right? But in the beginning, it was super brutal to compete in the big stage also.
Got it. Well, you're doing such a good job looking smooth on broadcast, and so we decided to let you guys loosen up a little bit. You know, I'm here looking ridiculous all the time on camera and felt like you two should also join in on the fun. So we pulled some questions from chat, and this is a user called Blue Hair is Awesome 69. They ask, what is your best card impression?
Well, you have been cringing all day on the main stage, so I guess I could make an attempt at that as well. Here goes.
All right, Gallon, here we go.
You are not prepared for the match that we have in store upcoming between Lee and bloodyface, the second semifinals today.
All right, can we give a round of applause for Gallon? Dropping the Illidan Storm Rage. Nice job. Hunter Ace.
I'm not sure about this one, guys. I think I'll skip on it. I think you guys have
really?
bested me here, so oof. Maybe next time.
You know what? It's okay. Hunter Ace, second in GM for Season 2. Second on this casting desk for card impressions. Let's take a look at the bracket. Gallon's the winner for this one. If you're just tuning in to the Hearthstone Grandmasters Global Finals here at BlizzCon, we finished our first semifinal with RNGLeaoh taking it over Casey by a narrow margin of 3-2. Now on the other side of the bracket, we have another Chinese player. Can Lee make it in all China finals? Or will the lone representative from the Americas be able to take it and send it to an East versus West battle? What's in store? No one knows. Is it going to be a lot of epic plays, legendary moments, or perhaps a twist? Let's go ahead and meet our players for the second semifinal, shall we? Our first, from Team Royal Never Give Up. He is the 2018 Hearthstone Global Games champion just a year ago on this stage. Please give it up for Lee! Opponent from the United States of America, representing Team Lazarus Gaming, the last hope for the West. Please welcome bloodyface! Only one spot left in the grand finals. Who's it gonna be? Shake hands. And let's get semifinal 2 underway.
bloodyface versus Lee. One of the most important matches that we'll see today, rivaled only by the grand finals.
Yes, as important as the previous match we saw versus Casey and Lion, of course, but a very big one, and I think especially a very big one for China. really showing a dominant performance so far. 5-0 total in the tournament with Lee and Lion already booking her ticket to the final. And we'll see if Lee manages to follow up that now. So we'll have a full China final.
I mean, in previous end-of-year championships, China has actually underperformed, I would say, a little bit. So seeing them at the global finals, just being 5-0, like you said, undefeated in match score is so impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive, and I think that their play in general has been extremely well also. I think that in general, China has been not only underperforming, but performing pretty badly in a lot of the championships and not playing up to the level of play that the other players have. But I really feel like in this event specifically, they have been up there and really just playing well Hearthstone.
I mean, we are more familiar with like the European, North American, Asia Pacific players, but I feel like today and yesterday we've seen some uncharacteristic performances of them from where, like, you know, missed lethals, just obvious errors, and I feel like the Chinese players have not shown any of those throughout the tournament. Lion has been playing fantastically, and I also think Lee has been playing very well. The matchup between bloodyface, though, I think will be pretty difficult. bloodyface is someone that has been in a lot of tense positions, hasn't lost his cool while others have. I think that's going to be very important against the Chinese player in Lee.
Yes, and we also have a bit of a different twist now with the best of 5 coming in compared to our previous series, where all been best of 3, where all the players can decide to not play a deck, which I think is a very big factor and can potentially end up swinging a series that was favorable for one player in the best of 3 phase to incredibly favored for the other player in the best of 5.
It's one of the big things for going from best of 3 to best of 5. In best of 3, you don't actually have to play one of your decks. So the weakest deck in a format, you can just elect to ignore it the entire time. When it comes to best of 5, though, that's where preparation can really get someone. If someone has understood that, hey, at some point I'm going to be playing best of 5 instead of best of 3, I'm going to make my deck list targeting that best of 5 format, even though it's not likely that'll be there. When they get there, they'll have an edge against someone that hasn't done that.
Yes, and we can see the first matchup here being Lee on the Highlander Paladin, which I believe we haven't seen him play so far this tournament. So already he has to play the deck that he hasn't played yet. So it'll be exciting to see if he manages to do well with it, because this is a very unique build of Highlander Paladin also, I believe, Galen.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of secrets. The addition of Mysterious Challenger to Standard and Doom of the Tomb, I think, made this deck a lot more consistent, along with Ragnaros the Fire Lord. We see Highlander Paladin actually get a huge boost in power, like over the last couple weeks and last couple tournaments. Masters Tours Bucharest, for example, we saw a ton of Highlander Paladin, where weeks before we had seen none of it.
Yes, and bloodyface will be on the Quest Shaman, which I believe he protected. Both players protecting Shaman in this series. A very big tendency in the tournament so far. Very high power level deck with Desert Hair Evolve.
If you go back through the games, there's lots of scenarios where Shaman will just have a blowout strategy against other decks. With that, specifically, like you said, Desert Hair Evolve, what a great combo. 4 mana, 3/4 drops. Fantastic.
And bloodyface already has it in hand. Off to a good start.
One thing I like to compare it to is, you know, Animal Companion? It's a 3 mana card that summons kind of a random 4-drop. This is a 4 mana 2-card combo that summons 3 random 4-drops. So you're paying an extra mana for like 8 mana worth of stuff, or 6 mana worth of stuff, which is fantastic.
Yes, and if you compare it to the old school Evolved Shaman with the Doppelgangster, I mean, this is just so much more powerful, because the fact that you can able to do this power turn already on turn 3 or turn 4 normally is just an insanely big difference from it being on turn 6 with the Doppelgangster Evolve, and it's really hard for the other decks to just keep up with it when it happens.
Absolutely. I feel like Lee has been off to a pretty rough start, not having the secret on turn 1 to activate his Sunreaver Spy, along with just not having Crystallage, or even a 1-drop to play on turn 1 like Brazen Zealot. It's not what you want to be doing against Shaman in the early game.
Yeah, and I think what is a bit unique about Lee's list is that he has a bit more aggressive curve in his list, and he runs a lot of the mech package, which makes it so that he can capitalize way more on having the board already. So the fact that he doesn't manage to get the board in the early game now is a very big deal for the future.
Yeah, I feel like Highlander Paladin is one of the first decks that we actually see make use of Magnetic as just charge damage, or at least that's like the focus of it. A Mech Hunter was a deck that used to exist. It still exists, but it's much weaker than it was a couple months ago, where it really abused that. But Mech Hunter was really the only deck that actually used Magnetize as just face damage. Highlander Paladin, though, we start to see that back in the metagame.
Yes, and already here, bloodyface getting super close to do his very powerful turn. He almost has the Mogu Flesh Shaper to get it with it, but he's not quite there yet because there's not enough minions on the board right now.
So he does have the opportunity to just go Mogu Flesh Shaper Mutate, which is something to consider. He does not get to fit in the Evolve, but I mean, that's still pretty powerful.
Yes, he could also potentially go the hair first and then follow up with the Mogu Flesh Shaper Mutate.
Yeah.
It's some different directions he can decide to take here, and it'll be interesting to see what bloodyface decides to do.
Yep. If he does commit to that, he's going to open himself up to Consecrate from the Highlander Paladins list. But this is something to talk about Highlander Paladin or Highlander decks in general, is the fact that when you get to this high level of competition, when you play against a Highlander deck, that Consecrate is half as likely to be in the opponent's hand as just like a normal Paladin deck, or like Holy Wrath, for example, where they run 2 Consecrates. When you start playing around everything that a Highlander deck can do, you're actually going to lose win rate. A lot of times against a Highlander deck, you just have to say, hey, it's unlikely that you have it, you don't got it, I'm going to play into it.
Yes, a lot of the same situation as when we were talking about how the Hunter secrets affect pro players a lot of the time. The fact that you have to realize that you just can't beat a card is just so hard for players, so they just tend to play around it in every single scenario. And versus the Highlander decks, sometimes you just have to realize that I can't beat this card, and I just can't play around it, so I have to make a play that is very weak towards it. And it looks like bloodyface is going for that Desert Hair Evolve first. I personally like this quite a lot, because I think that the board state for the Mogu Flesh Shaper will be better the upcoming turn.
Absolutely. Those are pretty good. Eh.
All elementals, Galen.
We see a belligerent gnome as well.
Bloodyface have any way to utilize these elementals, you think, Galen?
What's funny about Cosmic Anomaly, which is the 4/3, has spell power +2. Bloodyface runs no damage spells in his deck. So they're literally just 4 mana 4/3s.
Well, he does run lackeys, or lackey generators rather, and those can discover ethereal lackeys, and potentially any spell that is discovered. We get extremely strong with these elementals on the board right now.
Well, now you're getting a bit greedy.
I wonder.
And Lee here with a pretty complicated situation, I would say. He could decide to already play the Crystology here and fish for some of the one-attack minions that could be very good here, but he could also just stay on curve. The fact that bloodyface got so much board with these elementals is just really hard to come back from if you don't have the power of Zephyrus in your hand.
Zephyrus is one of the linchpins of Highlander decks right now. That card is just so powerful. In the early game, a lot of times you can get a wild growth, just power out stuff early. If you end up in a spot like this, there's like a host of options you could get to deal with the board.
Yes, I remember that there was this big discussion about whether or not Zephyrus would make Highlander decks good enough before the expansion revealed it. I think most people thought that it was a weaker Reno Jackson or a Kazakus. But at the end of the day, I actually think that it's stronger than both of them and has enabled so many different decks, even Highlander decks that are not supposed to be Highlander, which only has Zephyrus, have seen played in big tournaments. So I think that Zephyrus has really overperformed people's expectations, and it's really cool to see that.
Absolutely. We see it in Holy Wrath Paladin now. We see it in Quest Druid as well. Decks that can cycle through their deck often, decks that can cycle through all their cards often get that activated very easily.
And another Octosari! Oh, that's a big pickup there for bloodyface, and this is the consistency we see. What is this? The second or third Octosari in the tournament so far?
Well, the last time bloodyface got an Octosari, it was killed for him. So I recommend to Lee not to do that.
Yeah, but he is facing quite a little pressure here, Galen, if you haven't seen
Zephyrus. Zephyrus is the card.
Personally, I would like to deal with some of this board, but it doesn't seem quite possible right now.
What can you do? His hand is 6/8/8.
Again, we just see the extreme power level of this Shaman deck that people just keep on protecting, and really just utilizing the fact that our format has Protect, and we're able to just protect our strongest deck. And Shaman, it just is the power creep right now, and that's just something people have to deal with. And sometimes this happens, and you can't really do too much about it.
I feel like one of the long-standing things about Hearthstone is 8 mana is considered like the best random evolve mana cost to get to. That's not always been the case, but I think with the introduction of Octosari and Ragnaros, and even stuff like Walking Fountain, 8 has just become this amazing number in terms of evolve. So, like, out of all the numbers, just Mogul Flesh Shaper going to 8 mana is really powerful. Now, there is, like, the low roll, if you will, of Hyreek the Bat, but even in Quest Shaman, Hyreek the Bat, you can add it back to your hand, play it again, and you just get like a whole bunch of copies of 3/3s or 5/5s with Block Slusher.
So Gal, what can even Zephyrus give her? I'm not even sure if Zephyrus is enough. I just feel that the game is just over. There's just no way for Paladin to get back here.
Zephyrus Mind Control Tech the 8/8. Would that work?
That might.
You can
keep him
Blessing of
alive
Wisdom
for a
the
bit.
1/2, trade it into the 4/1, get a Zephyrus, Mind Control Tech.
Or he's going face.
Oh, he's going face, yeah.
The victory is
Oh, okay, well, no Zephyrus. Bloodyface is going to lock it up with a very powerful Flesh Shaper Evolve.
I'm quite curious why he decided to go face there. Was he looking for a Zephyrus Nova potentially, or what do you think?
I mean, I think even in that scenario, it's just so unlikely because if you get the Zephyrus, you also have to get the MC Tech to hit the 1 in 5, for example, to get the 8. And even from there, you're taking like 8 damage on the backswing when you're at 12. So it's just very unlikely.
Yeah, I think that he was probably supposed to go for a trader and go for a Zephyrus Mind Control Tech like you were talking about, but it's just no way you win there anyways. I think
It's
it was
really
the power of Shaman there,
Yeah.
and sometimes you just can't deal with that. It's just evolved too powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you want to run Evolve Shaman at these kinds of tournaments where you can protect it and play it game 1. The power level of Evolve and Quest Shaman is just so high right now that the format really lends itself nicely to that deck.
Yeah, also a good part now that we have the best of 5, right? So we will see all of these other decks also thrive and see all of the competition right here, because he has to get that win with the Paladin, and we haven't seen that deck versus any other decks this tournament so far. So we'll see if he manages to do that. I'm not sure if this deck is strong enough, because I've really seen it struggle in previous tournaments.
I think Paladin is a lot better versus slower decks. So we see Bloodyface having both Priest and Shaman in this tournament, but there is Druid and Warrior, so maybe that Paladin can find a win. I think it is very powerful versus slower decks like Druid and Warrior. Anyways, we have to go to a quick break before Game 2, but stick with this. Game 2 will be coming right up.
BlizzCon 2019 is brought to you by
T-Mobile. Their newest signal goes farther than ever, and it's built 5G ready.
MSI, True Gaming. Intel, the official CPU partner of BlizzCon. And by HyperX. We're all gamers.
随着黄金公开赛佛山站的结束，我们也在佛山迎来了第2位代表国服出战特级大师赛全球总决赛的选手RNGLeaoh。他将和 RNGLeaoh一同代表国服前往暴雪嘉年华。我们也在此为大家回顾一下RNGLeaoh的一路竞技历程。随着新版本奥丹姆骑兵的到来，对于新版本的理解就成了众多选手能否取得成绩的重要因素。RNGLeaoh作为一名征战职业赛场多年的老将，同时也是一位科技怪咖，在新版本伊始就开始研究元气骑卡组。在新版本全球首秀的黄金公开赛大师组上海站的比赛中，RNGLeaoh凭借一手元气骑一路过关斩将，击败莫论人飞以及 WE 天皇2位老牌选手挺进决赛。在决赛中，则是遭遇到 Vicky Swipe 动物园的挑战。RNGLeaoh在先输一局的情况下，顶住了对手的进攻，成功的让1追2，拿到了新版本的首个冠军，并成功晋级大师组第2赛季季后赛。不久之后，天津、上海、成都黄金公开赛上表现最为出色的8位炉石选手齐聚佛山，为了一个特级大师赛全球总决赛的名额展开争夺。而RNGLeaoh则在半决赛上迎来了来自 IG 随缘峰的挑战，面对战队赛的 MVP 唯一峰哥，RNGLeaoh展现出了平时辛勤练习的成果，尤其是在一局任务德对阵防战的赛点局中，利用伊利斯打出无限手牌的操作惊艳全场。在最终的决赛上，RNGLeaoh再次迎来了老对手莫论人飞，双方前几局互有胜负，比赛被拖入了决胜局。在这场惊心动魄的元气骑内战中，前期RNGLeaoh在过牌上略逊于莫论人飞，但在关键时刻 RNGLeaoh依靠赛卡尔和回血，将自己的血量提升到了50点，在汤水商贩的配合下，追上了获牌数量，并且成功的爆掉了对手一张神圣愤怒，最终成功翻盘，夺得了黄金公开赛大师组第2赛季季后赛的冠军，拿到了国服第2张直通安娜海姆的入场券。1个月后，RNGLeaoh就将和 RNGLeaoh 踏上前往暴雪嘉年华特级大师赛全球总决赛的征程。我们期待这2位选手可以继续他们出色的发挥，成功的将奖杯带回中国。
Final day of Hearthstone Global Finals. We are underway in the match between bloodyface and Lee in the semifinals. bloodyface is going to be queuing Druid in the next game, and we are still waiting to hear back from Lee on his deck list. But let's talk about game 1 real quick. I feel like Shaman is just really strong this tournament.
Yeah, I couldn't say that I don't agree with you there, Galen. Shaman has definitely been tearing through this tournament so far. And I think that it's by far the most protected most protected deck, and it's really just showing the power of the new Evolve inclusion together with the Desert Hare is just way too much for all the decks to deal with. It's just one of the most powerful turn 4s I think we've ever seen in Hearthstone, and I'm not quite sure how people are going to deal with it. We just kind of have to let it go sometimes and go through to the next game and let the next deck
I think it's a really good choice for this tournament. Honestly, Evolve and Quest Shaman both seem just like one of the most powerful decks you can bring. And I mean, like, you really need strong options for this tournament, because I have to remind you that people here aren't playing for breadcrumbs. They are playing for hundreds of thousands of dollars. First place at this tournament is $200,000 along with the title of Hearthstone Global Champion. And I mean, even second is still 6 digits, $100,000. That's insane.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot, and the stakes are just getting higher and higher right now. Getting to that final is a very big deal for both players, I imagine. Even just getting that big championship victory is so big for both these players, and I think that especially bloodyface, after having a rough championship earlier this year, is really wanting to revenge himself here and show that he's worthy of getting the big W.
I mean, it's literally life-changing money. I think I was talking with bloodyface about what he would do with it, and he wants to buy a house, which is pretty crazy to me. But I mean, That's the kind of money we're talking about. Bloodyface is someone that I respect so much as a competitor. You know, he is from my region as well. He got into the Hearthstone Grandmasters Season 1. And I've been following his career from like 3 years ago. And I think last year he really impressed me along with a lot of other people across the world with his performance throughout the HCT events. You know, double qualifying for the World Championship. That is something that we don't often see.
Yeah, for sure. And we could also talk a little bit about the regional powers this weekend. And I think that a big surprise to me actually is how the APAC region didn't get anyone into top 4, even though I think that on paper they might have had 2 of the strongest players with both Tom and Surrender representing.
Well, I mean, that was a storyline in and of itself because Tom, after finishing 8th place, actually overtook Tice as the #1 prize money earning in Hearthstone over all of Hearthstone. The only person who could overtake him at this tournament was Surrender. If Surrender had gotten 1st place here, he would have actually overtaken Tom as the #1 prize money earner of all time. That storyline didn't pan out, but Tom is still #1, and I mean, like, I don't think he could be too unhappy with that.
Yeah, and also, as much as I hate to say it, Europe is also defeated, which I think is a pretty big deal for the Europe region, which is normally very confident on themselves being the best region and clearly not showing up to their full potential this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Casey lose to Lion earlier in a nail-biting 3-2 finish, but Lion just kind of dominated that entire series. Even though it was 3-2, went to Game 5, I feel like in the final game, she just understood everything about the Warrior versus Druid matchup, just totally locked it down with that instant OTK at the very end.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a very impressive performance from Lion so far. Currently 3-0 in the tournament, undefeated, looking great into the potential final. If she would face Lee, both players would actually be undefeated and China just be winning against everyone.
Well, that seems almost impossible because what happens when you have an unstoppable force versus an immovable object? If both players are undefeated, someone has to lose.
That's true,
That
Galen.
is very
Someone
true.
has to lose.
That's just the thing. We're
So
not going to like, stop the tournament.
Who
if
will
Lee
lose
gets second.
first?
Yeah, well,
We don't know.
we don't know.
But we'll definitely, hopefully, see that soon if we're getting into this game,
Yep.
which I hope we are, because we've been
We're-
keeping this going for a while now.
We're clearly stalling for time right now, but it should be fine. Okay, it looks like we will be going into Game 2. It looks like Bloodyface is queuing Druid. We still need to get word about what Lee is queuing. It seems like Lee is going to be queuing Highlander Paladin again. So I think this is the matchup that Lee wants with Highlander Paladin. I think Druid struggles often with early board pressure. That's what Highlander Paladin does best.
Yeah, and especially Lee's version, which is very good at just capitalizing on early pressure and magnetizing mechs into big mechs, which Druid really just can't deal with right now. There's no more naturalize in Druid, so dealing with very big minions in the early game is just a very difficult thing to do for Druids.
I mean, we already see Lee having some of the most strong, like the strongest cards possible as Highlander Paladin. Serve Finley to me feels almost like a better Prince Keleseth. Prince Keleseth was a card from previous expansions that, like, when played early, just took the game by force. I feel like Sir Finley kind of does the same thing. Upgraded hero powers early on. We've already seen that to be a very powerful mechanic, so Lee having that here just seems so good.
I really just think that this hand, especially from Lee, is just showing exactly what he wants from his Highlander Paladin. He has the early mech, which is very unique to his list, but he also has all the power cards that is the reason you play the Highlander deck. Also the mysterious challenger from the new update.
Finley, Zephyrus, Mysterious Challenger. There's literally not a better draw in the deck.
Yeah, so if he loses this one, Galen, what do you think then? Seems like exactly what you want from the Paladin.
I don't think he's losing this one. That would be my first impression. However, Bloodyface does have a fairly solid start. He does have Crystal Merchant, Oasis Surgery. Both of those are really good contesting early game.
Yeah, I think that the Druid just, in this matchup specifically, is a very big deal that they get the coin, because completing the quest early and getting to that turn 5 Oasis Surgery, or Starfall, or potentially turn 6 Nourish is such a big deal. And comebacking in the game is so important, because if Lee just keeps on having the board, he's just going to be able to capitalize on it, and I think from that point on it's just hard for the Druid to win.
Makes a lot of sense. Lee actually has a couple options here. I believe if he played Zephyrus right now, he'd be offered an inner fire and just be able to push 5 damage. But I think taking draws when you can get them, especially when Druid can't answer something like a 1-5 that has a Blessing of Wisdom on it, is very important.
Yeah, and here he has the option of just choosing what hero power he wants and what direction you think he wants to take here, Galen.
So, from my perspective, I think between Poison Daggers and Dire Shapeshift, I would always take the Daggers here. Armor doesn't matter that much, and just having that repeated damage instead of having to spend 2 mana each turn for it seems better. But then between the Daggers and the Recruits, I think it's pretty close. We've seen Odd Paladin, a deck that came from the Witchwood, do really powerful stuff versus decks that want to just like fight off some amount of board. That hero power makes board after board after board after board and can force people out of resources. However, Dagger is just damage. It's just raw burst damage.
Job done.
It's a very, very interesting decision he has to make there, and I think it's really hard. I think he can make a lot of good arguments for both things, and in this specific scenario, he thinks that the Recruits are the better option, which I definitely can see. And Harry picks up the Magnetizement. So he could go for it potentially and just keep on pressuring on with this 1-5. It always drawing more and more cards also, right? And it makes it super hard for bloodyface to deal with.
This turn is actually ridiculously hard. Zephyrus right now, I believe, would still offer an Inner Fire if Lee play the Hidden Wisdom first, but that doesn't line up very nicely versus a swipe. He does have the option of going Annoy Module, but if he actually wants to kill the Crystal Merchant first, he has to play the Annoy Module first, kind of removing the Divine Shield. Just going face. Taking the trade. This makes a lot of sense. Push damage when you can.
Yeah, he also wants to do this trade, so bloodyface doesn't get the efficient trade into the Divine Shield without also sacrificing a potential card draw this turn, which I actually really like, and I don't think it's that obvious from an outside perspective why he does this trade, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
The Innervate here is going to punish that just a little bit, not that much.
So every single turn now for Lee, it's always the consideration of, is it worth it to play a Zephyrus now, and what does Zephyrus give me now? And it's really a hard game to play, and what do you think it does?
If I had to guess here, I think that Zephyrus will offer him an Inner Fire with a hero power, like I've been saying turn after turn after turn. And it's like that I'm pretty interested in if I was in Lee's spot. But just like I've been talking about this Inner Fire this entire time, Zephyrus is a card with so many options that if you try to tunnel vision too hard on one specific thing, you can often end up faltering. You know, maybe there is something better than an Inner Fire here, and I'm just not spotting it because my brain is so focused on that. That's one of the hardest things about Highlander decks, is knowing how to use that Zephyrus, especially offensively. When you're playing Zephyrus defensively, it becomes pretty apparent. Just use the thing that clears the most amount of board possible. But offensively, there's always some different combination that might be better than what you're doing, and you always have to think about the different possible lines.
Yes, I think I actually agree with you here, Galen. I think I maybe would also go for the Zephyrus here for the Inner Fire, just to pressure up so much into the Mysterious Challenger, which is a very, very powerful play he can do next turn. But he decides to go for a different line. Also, there's a lot of merit in attacking first there, because you could potentially pick up a different play that is also very good, right?
Very true. One of the benefits of Inner Fire alongside just pushing 6 extra damage that turn was the fact that it plays really nicely against an Oasis Surger. Both the 9/9 clears both of these 5/5s.
Yeah, the problem now is that the Oasis Surger gets value trades. They would trade into the 9/9 also, but then the Oasis Surger wouldn't be on the board, which I think is a big problem now for Lee, that they actually are.
So just based on all of that, I'm still pretty confident that an Inner Fire is better than SA7 Agent there. You also got to weave in the 2 extra 1/1s from your hero power, which Lee has not actually made use of just yet.
Yes, I would have liked to see the Inner Fire there also, again, I agree with that. But I think that Lee's line also clears off the 1/2, right? Which is somewhat relevant versus the case where bloodyface just doesn't have that Oasis Surger. But I think in a specific scenario, he could afford to play
let's talk about the scenario where he doesn't have an Oasis Surger, because then his 9/9 is living.
Let me think.
That's pretty good.
Yes, but at the same time, you don't need to play the 9/9 that turn if he doesn't have the Oasis Surgery, right? And you can just play it even slower and get even more value of the Zephyrs later. But he played the Zephyrs anyway, so yeah, I think it was just a misstep from my perspective at least to not go for Inner Fire.
I think the obvious thing for Lee now is he still wants to maintain tempo. Ragnaros, Tyrion are both excellent cards at this point in the game, and you can play a Mysterious Challenger to deny at least one of these 5/2s from connecting. Remember that there's going to be a noble sacrifice pulled off the 6/6, denying that 5/2. This makes a lot of sense. The 5/2 will have to trade into a 2/1. Because bloodyface lost his initial hero power, he can't actually attack to try to proc these secrets. It's one of like the funny things about the quest reward is that sometimes you actually want the hero power, but you deny yourself the opportunity.
It's also a very interesting inclusion in Lee's Highlander Paladin specifically with this Avenging Wrath, which I think is probably going to reward him quite a lot this game, where he just has this additional reach that it's pretty hard for the opponent to play around sometimes, especially when you just keep on having the board and you just threaten 8 extra damage. That's so much damage, Galen.
I mean, Avenging Wrath is like one of the most mana efficient cards, or mana efficient per damage cards that you can actually get for 6 mana. I don't think there's really anything below or above it by quite a bit that deals more than 8 damage. Gorehowl deals 7 at 7 damage, Fireball deals 6 at 4, but 8's really hard to do.
Yeah, and bloodyface here just playing the hidden Oasis. It's not only so hard to deal with all of these secrets coming in at the same time from the Mysterious Challenger, and bloodyface doesn't even want to proc the Noble Sacrifice because he just will proc the Avenge and the Redemption at that point, and that's just not very good for him.
I imagine Lee's interested in subduing the 6/6. Those are some really sticky 1 and 2 drops. And if I had to guess, the play will look something like Micro Mummy, Mech Ruin, and Avenge. Or Hidden Wisdom. Okay.
And there is quite some reason not to play the Hidden Wisdom here, I think, because now you give bloodyface the full information on all 5 secrets, right? Without playing the Hidden Wisdom there, bloodyface wouldn't know all the secrets, which makes him a bit harder for him because he has to respect the Hidden Wisdom anyways a lot of the time, I think. What do you think about that, Galen?
It's a really difficult decision that I think will only pan out in different ways, like maybe 1 in 100 games, but it is something to consider. When you have 5 secrets up, they know exactly what they are. But again, we've been talking about this, you know, like pro players not wanting to play around secrets being good.
Yeah, and oftentimes they just respect all the secrets, right? So they will. But I think in the spot that bloodyface is, it's just super hard for him to deal with 5 secrets now, and getting out the extra draw 2 cards now is also just so powerful because how is bloodyface not going to spend 3 cards this turn?
So it sounds like you're changing your position on this.
Well, I'm just talking about different perspectives, right, Galen?
Sure.
It's an interesting conversation.
Sounds like a good perspective to have.
Yeah. And bloodyface is struggling here. He kind of doesn't want to play more than 2 cards because he procs the secret, but he just can't do anything powerful this way.
This is a power turn for Lee.
There's multiple power turns here, so do you want to go for the Tyrion or the Rag potentially here? We could also make the trades to just keep on making it so that the 5/2 has to trade into Noble Sacrifice, which have been very hard for bloodyface to deal with the previous turns, seeing him just not attack with it at all because it's just too bad versus the other secrets.
Ragnaros just seems to make sense with this line.
Yeah, if this hits face, it's just so good, and there's just so much pressure no matter what happens there. And oof, he hits the face. Very big deal for Lee there.
Micro Mummy and Ragnaros is kind of a combo. Doesn't work well together.
So with double Starfall now, is there a clear?
I believe there is. You Starfall the 7/8 and you Starfall the 9/8. Should clear both minions. Now that being said, oh, was there? Wait a second. That doesn't actually clear the 10/10 anymore. Starfall is not going to work. Bloodyface is going to have to diverge from that if he wants to stay alive this turn. Starfall will not clear the 10-10 if he wants to clear the Ragnaros
Is
as
there
well.
a way though? Could you potentially pick up the War Druid Lodi from the Worthy Expedition? Does that work?
I believe it does.
Time waits for no one.
That way
Starfall
he
would deal
stay
9 damage to the
that way he would
Ragnaros.
stay alive on board at least.
Yes, yes. So you need to find a Lodi off of the Worthy Expedition or a Lodi off of the Wrath.
Does this work? I guess this way he can make it so that.
Oh. How much damage does Lee have with this Avenging Wrath? I believe with the numbers right now, there's 12 health for Bloodyface total, and Avenging Wrath will put him to 11. So Bloodyface is 1 health away from dying right now.
Yeah, and that's a very good play from Bloodyface, managing to find a way out of it, staying alive without having to go for the Worthy Expedition, hoping that
he's
you pick
definitely
up
not
the
out of
Worthy
it.
Lodi.
He's definitely not out of it. From Lee's side, I mean, Tyrion here plus Mekaru is just like more than enough to lock out the game, right? Wait, did we just miss lethal?
Oh.
I think everyone. Oh no, that also works. Okay, cool. There's like so many ways of doing it. You can go snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. That's 9. Snip, snap there. All right.
Yeah, just
All
snip,
right.
snap, finish game.
Masterclass from Lee.
We're casters now, Galen. This is allowed, you know?
Yeah.
We don't have to spot it every time, as long as the players spot it, proving that they're the one that deserves being there, you know?
Absolutely.
And
Lee
Lee
definitely played that
spotting
game
the lethal.
fantastically. The fact that he went Hidden Wisdom there, drawing extra cards. The fact that he played a Ragnaros, figuring out exactly when to play it on the last turn, spotting, not a difficult lethal, but if you're trying to like focus on the fact that Avenging Wrath only deals 11 with a 3 in play, you can often miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's a great spot from Lee. I think that I'm pretty disappointed us not spotting it, to be honest, but it's good that Lee did. And getting the win with the Highlander Paladin, very big win, because that is a deck that he hasn't been playing so far this tournament, so it's clearly a deck that he isn't feeling that comfortable with. And getting that out of the way now, I think puts him in a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Lee's Highlander Paladin was like the big question mark of this specific game. You know, in best of 5, he was going to have to play that deck sooner or later. In best of 3, he could avoid doing it. In best of 5, he cannot. So, you know, I am a little bit down on that deck, but the fact that he just got to win there, I think Lee's path to victory will be a lot easier going forward. Let's go to a quick break where we hear from our sponsors, but we will be having Game 3 underway shortly, so stay tuned. Don't miss a minute.
BlizzCon 2019 is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of BlizzCon. Facebook Gaming, a world of play. Samsung SSD, performance gamers trust. Corsair, do your thing. And by NVIDIA.
Those words from our sponsors. We are still in the middle of Bloodyface versus Lee, the second semifinals before the championship finals. Bloodyface and Lee are now 1-1 after Lee's pretty impressive performance at Paladin. Just fantastic turn after turn, on curve plays, ending in a fireworks finish with Avenging Wrath.
Yeah, Lee really just outplaying us casters there and Bloodyface, and finding his way through victory, showing the true power of the Highlander Paladin there with both the Zephyrs and Sir Finley together with the Mysterious Challenges, showing like the big power that the deck actually can create.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think Paladin is uniquely positioned versus Highlander Druid. It's one of the few decks that really doesn't put any pressure on the other player until like turn 5, turn 6 when they can play Oasis Surger. Highlander Paladin is a deck that if you don't pressure it, it's gonna run you over. You know, I think Highlander Paladin often struggles versus Shaman, for example, because that early pressure that Shaman can create in the form of Desert Hero Evolve, or even like Quest Shaman minions, weaponized Wasps, questing Explorers, or questing Adventurers, that can actually make Paladin struggle. Druid, on the other hand, their best early turn is just like a 2-mana 1/4 in the form of Crystal Merchant and maybe a Wrath. That isn't pressure. That's just half-baked removal until the quest is activated. It looks like Bloodyface will be playing Quest Druid for Game 3. I think this deck is very powerful, but there is one notable non-included card in this list, which is King Phaeorus, as you have mentioned before. King Phaeorus is often something that you want in the late game to just blow someone out of the water. It's kind of like a 10-mana Desert Hare evolve, but he doesn't have that here. Instead, he's elected to use a Baleful Banker instead for a late-game combo where he can assemble so much armor with Baleful Banker, Elise, Kuhn, and Flippin' Isflu.
Yeah, and also Lee on his own Shaman now. After we saw a dominating performance from Bloodyface Protected Shaman, now Lee, after getting the victory with the Highlander Paladin, gets to play his own Shaman. This is why I think Lee is in a very exceptional spot right now. Lee has Shaman and RNGLeaoh, two decks that have been performing extremely well so far in the tournament.
Yeah, and I feel like specifically in this match, I think he got a very favorable queue based on what he could have queued. Rogue versus Druid is such a bad matchup. I played that so much on ladder, and every single time I feel like I just never get there. Hidden Oasis, Oasis Surger, Nourish are all these powerful mid-game things that the Rogue really can't answer. So the fact that he's queued Shaman instead of Rogue into this Druid is so crucial for, I think, his win rate overall.
Yes, also a factor that comes into the series now when it's best of 5 is that Lee kind of has this soft target, I would say, on Bloodyface Combo Priest, and especially now that the Highlander Paladin is out, we have the Shaman and the Rogue left versus a potential Combo Priest, which I think is very favorable for Lee and puts him in a great position.
Yeah, so we might be looking at, if Lee wins this game, we'll be looking at a game for Rogue versus Druid. But after that, Lee will have Rogue versus Priest, if that's how the game pans out. And I think in that specific matchup, he's pretty favored. So we're going in Game 3. Shaman versus Quest Druid. Lee on the coin, Bloodyface on the play. I want your opinion on something. When you're mulliganing with Evolve Shaman, often you have to like pretty aggressively go for a Desert Hare Evolve, and if you don't find both of those, individually they're pretty weak. Against Quest Druid, do you feel like it's one of those matchups where you have to do that strategy?
So I think in this specific scenario here, where I think Lee only really has the Desert Hare that he wants to keep on coin, I think it's very reasonable to just keep the Desert Hare and mulligan everything else, because at that point you have a pretty high odds of just picking up either the Spirit of the Frog or the Evolve by itself, and that's very strong. So I definitely agree with what Lee is doing here.
Makes a lot of sense. He's found some of the pieces of what we can pretty much say the combo. Desert Hare, Mogu Flesh Shaper. All he needs right now is Evolve, Mutate. Even Soul the Murloc I think is pretty powerful with this kind of start.
Yes, especially Spirit of the Frog I think he's looking for when he's on the coin. It's a very powerful addition that wasn't initially included in the Shaman deck, but later people figured out how good it was at just picking up those important combo pieces, especially now with the Evolve edition. It's just so powerful to be able to fish for that Evolve inside your deck. Yeah,
it seems like all the 0, 1, and 2 mana spells work incredibly well with each other.
And Bloodyface here just doing what Quest Druid does in her early game, just playing slow, generating multiple cards and trying to get to that quest completion where it can start doing the really powerful turns.
This is really interesting. I feel like Kuhn the Forgotten King is not as powerful versus Shaman right now as it is just versus the general field, but it's still so powerful, especially with a Nourish already in hand, that maybe it's just better than a Druid of the Claw. I imagine Bloodyface isn't really interested in this Nourish because he has a copy of that already in his hand, but I think the choice between Druid of the Claw and Kuhn is actually really hard.
Yeah, I actually agree with that, and I think that I would have personally picked the Kuhn, because I think it's very unlikely that Bloodyface ever will find time this game to play the Druid of the Claw, because after the Nourish, I just think that he has so many options that are very likely to just be a better Druid of the Claw. So picking up the Kuhn and potentially a very powerful swing turn in the late game just seems a bit more relevant.
What you're saying is that Druid of the Claw is kind of a dead card, and then Kuhn is a dead card with upside.
Yeah, Kuhn is a dead card, but the thing is that if after the Nourish, which is the turn we complete the quest, we want to play the Nourish no matter what, I think. And after that, we probably have assembled more powerful plays than Druid of the Claw anyways, right? So we won't be able to fit the Druid of the Claw into any of our turns before turn 10. And at that point, the Kuhn is just the stronger card, in my opinion.
I agree with you. Lee is still waiting on that Evolve, or even a Mutate here, I believe. I think both of those would be really good for him. Otherwise, maybe just clearing the 1-4 with a Lickum, developing that, maybe playing a Voltaic Burst seems like the pretty obvious answer to this 1-4.
Yeah, it's a bit of a clunky situation here for Lee. He has all the pieces he wants when he has the Evolve, but he doesn't have the key piece, which is Evolve or the Spirit of the Frog. So he kind of just has to play this game out now, not using too many resources and just waiting for getting that Evolve pick, which is the one that really explodes out this game.
I think if he doesn't find it, bloodyface could get out of this game, or get out of the early game unscathed, I would say. He's still at 30 life, and he's going into his turn 5 next turn.
But big problem for bloodyface there is that he needs to not spend all his mana on turn 5 to complete the quest, and that just leaves him with not having a real turn either this turn or next turn, how it's looking right now, and that's pretty weak for him. And if Lee manages to pick up one of these key pieces we've been talking about so far, Lee might put enough pressure to just out-pressure bloodyface, even though he has very strong plays going into turn 6.
There are some cards that change that. For example, an Innervate off the top would make bloodyface's next turn very easy, I would say. You'd be able to place Oasis Surger or Nourish for mana, and both of those with an Innervate work really well, I think. Nourish just by itself because you go Innervate Nourish, Oasis Surger because you could play it, and then Innervate for an unused mana, complete your quest, and still have Oasis Surgers in play.
Yeah, and I think at this point, bloodyface is just thinking about making your opponent think that you have cards that you don't have, because I don't really see too much reason here for him to think. Maybe he's thinking about the potential of turn 6, what I want to do versus the potential of my opponent doing these different things. Yeah. It is going to be a very important turn, the turn 6, because he has a lot of options.
Sorry for interrupting you. It could be something like, you know, cycling Wrath on the 1/1 to draw a card. What bloodyface could be thinking about.
Yeah, he's just representing cards that he doesn't have.
Exactly.
And I think that is definitely worth it. He just needs to spend his time here and make his opponent a bit confused maybe, and playing around stuff that he doesn't need to play around really.
This is pretty interesting. I feel like we're seeing a game where both players kind of aren't doing anything, which doesn't really happen in Hearthstone games. We've seen a lot of games with early game blowouts where people just turn after turn in the early games are doing these powerful things. And here we're seeing Lee consider playing a couple 1/1s on turn 4 or bloodyface hero powering or not. Does Lee have any interest in going something like Kobold, Lackey Face, Coin Soul, the Murloc?
There is little time.
I think that he probably saves it, but he's very afraid of potential of swipe here, just clearing up his board. He could have also went the Desert Hare this turn and just hope that your opponent doesn't have any swipes, and if he doesn't have the swipe there, we just have a very big board, and the Bloodless topic would potentially just end the game. I think that his current play is not optimistic enough and not playing into all of his outs here, and I don't think he actually needs both the Desert Hares. So personally, I would have liked to see that he just play the Desert Hare here and force your opponent to swipe. If he doesn't have the swipe, we have the Death Rattles for all our minions on board, and then we also, together with the Evolve top deck, we also have the Bloodless top deck to be devastating for bloodyface.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
But bloodyface here not really left with any options. He can decide to go for a different game plan here and go for Oasis Surger into Oasis Surger, white out completing the quest, but that seems very ambitious.
It seems very ambitious when you have a Nourish in hand. I think that if bloodyface just takes this pretty slow and completes the quest, the Nourish is going to be way more powerful than just trying to fight for board right now. From bloodyface's perspective, it could very easily be that Lee just has a hand full of removal, and playing minions into that kind of hand is just giving Lee kind of what he wants, I think. Delaying your own quest and giving his card, like his hand answers, is not really what you want to do.
Yeah, bloodyface agreeing, just taking it very slowly.
Casina, that's a huge pickup.
Yeah, and another pickup that would have been very rewarded if he decided to go for the risky line last turn with playing the Desert here, I think, and getting to accumulate a very big board. But now we don't really have that big board, and the Vicina just gets cleanly dealt with, and we don't push too much damage either. But that's obviously very resource-oriented here. That I know that bloodyface doesn't have the swipe, and if he had the swipe, the Desert Hare would be devastating. But I personally just didn't think that we needed both Desert Hares, so I thought it was worth playing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think now Lee just has to decide whether Vicina is worth committing to this board. Yes, she puts an extra 6 damage. And you do force Bloodyface off Nourish if that's what his plan wants to be. However, the Oasis Surger that Bloodyface does have will just be able to make quick work of that Vicina.
Something that we can see here is that Lee could potentially force Bloodyface into Oasis Surger. But the thing is that he also has the potential of Starfold here, which also would be devastating. So it's not only that, but Lee just trying to pressure here. He really just wants this evolve. It's what he's been looking for the entire game and what he's been playing for, clearly seeing how he decided to.
Well, I mean, okay, so we're going to a turn now where if he gets Desert Hair coin evolve, that's like a real thing that he can do. So we've kind of skipped over the first one. We're going straight to Desert Hair 2.0. Where you can just do 6. That's pretty big.
Yeah, Quest Shaman can do 5, but this with double hair,
we're just doing 6. Better.
Yeah, and if he manages to pick it up, it's going to be quite a big board. And I'm not sure if even with Bloodyface, with the quest completed now, if he's able to deal with that. It's just such a powerful board.
Again, we're at a spot where a single draw changes the game.
But Lee doesn't pick it up. And now it's starting to become in very dangerous territory for Lee because Bloodyface is getting to the real power turns, and it's pretty scary.
What's the equivalent? He's got a sports car but no gas in the tank right now. He's got a $100,000 sports car and no gas in the tank right now because that's what he's fighting for.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, Caroline. Sure. But as Lee here, he has to play optimistic because I think he's kind of committed into this whole evolve route.
Is there some way to force out a Starfall while also threatening lethal? Lightning Bolt face, for example, you get to increase your Lickum to 3 damage. You have 4 in play. 4 + 3 + 3, that's 10. You put him down to 11. You've got a Kobo lacking hand as well.
So what he could do here is that he could just say that maybe my opponent just doesn't have the Starfall or the swipe. But he already have paid respect to both of those cards, I feel, with the earlier play he decided to make. So I think it's extremely unlikely that he makes such a play right now, even though it seems very good on the current state from a viewer perspective.
Even that would get a little bit checked by the Oasis, I believe.
But he decides to commit a bit more here, giving himself potentially more outs. And also a big factor here is that if our opponents go for the Starfall or the swipe, he can't do anything else, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it so the Nourish play and stuff like that just isn't that good anymore.
Oh, if Bloodyface could know that Lee doesn't have a Bloodlust right now in hand, he'd be so thrilled.
Can we beat the Bloodlust though? I guess we could do the Hidden Oasis. Yeah, and that's what he's pressured into doing now, right? Because he's just very afraid. And how it turns out, the Hidden Oasis here isn't the best play versus what Lee has, but he's representing something again, which we've been talking a lot about this tournament, and it's a huge factor. So we might see Bloodyface just not playing the Nourish, but maybe he's going for it anyways.
That would be pretty interesting. I think that would be Bloodyface just realizing exactly what his game plan is. If he plays Nourish here, I think that's like a pretty next level play. One thing to consider is, if you play the Hidden Oasis, are you really still beating Bloodlust? Like you just said, you know, yes, you get out of range of it, but suddenly your opponent still has board and you don't actually have an answer to it.
Yeah, and that's what he has to ask himself, right? And apparently he thinks that it's a higher likelihood of him beating the Bloodlust, and it's possible, so he pays respect to it, which I can definitely see. Makes a lot of sense. But he's making his potential next turns a lot weaker. Also going back to something we were talking about earlier in the game, we see this Druid of the Claw still in hand, right? And I don't really think that this is ever something I will see play. It just seems like a not good enough card to deal with any type of board.
As soon as we get to turn 10, picking that Druid of the Claw instead of Kun is going to be a massive error. So if he wins on turn 9, it's totally fine. But on turn 10, I think 10 mana 7/7, gain 10, refresh your mana crystals is going to be way better than what this Druid of the Claw is going to assemble.
Yeah, and I think that just was a big error in the early game. I think he should have realized that this is a very likely scenario.
I think this game is going to turn 10.
Yeah, I also think that the Druid of the Claw was very unlikely to see play before turn 10.
And if the game wasn't going to turn 10, or you have 10 mana crystals, it probably meant you lost. So having a Druid Claw instead of a Kun won't really affect anything.
But Lee here trying to figure out what to do. He doesn't have the Evolve yet, or the Bloodlust, as we were talking about. And it's quite a difficult spot for him. He also saw that his opponent didn't play the Starfall or the swipe, so he has a clear read on the hack, I would say. And he thinks thinks that he can just keep this board because he knows that there is no answer currently, and it will just keep bloodyface in an awkward spot because Lee could reasonably now not play the Bloodlust, I think, because he has a read on the no swipe, no Starfall. So bloodyface still afraid of the Bloodlust here, I think.
If he wants to pay as much respect as possible, Ferocious Howl, Oasis Surger clears up 2 of the minions on board, gains a mate armor, puts him well out of range of Bloodlust.
Yeah, and that seems like the clear play that he's going for right now. Just seems very simple.
Lee is still on the draw to take firm control of this game with an evolve. That's also pretty big. Soul of the Murloc here is pretty good. Lee already knows that there's really no AoE in Bloodyface's hand, so even if Bloodyface picked up 1 swipe or Starfall, that means that it's very unlikely he has 2.
Yes, correct. And I would like to mention that it's pretty unfortunate for Lee here not being able to pick up the Spirit of the Frog or the Evolve the entire game when his hand has been entirely based around picking up one of these cards. But he's definitely still in with a shot here. Bloodyface hasn't picked up any of the removal, which is crucial in this matchup. So he just keeps having the board here and threatening a potential big burn with the Bloodlust later in the game.
I mean, the way Lee's been playing has been forcing Bloodyface off the Nourish. Turn after turn, no Nourish for Bloodyface because he has to pay respect to, Bloodlust, he has to pay respect to Vicina. So even though his hand is not shaped out as well as possible, you have to remember that the way he's been playing has also made Bloodyface not play his optimal game.
Yes, from an outside perspective here, it would seem like Bloodyface was just supposed to play the Nourish earlier in the game and gain a lot of mana and just sealing the board potentially, but that just isn't the case you can do because of the fact that Lee could just represent a Bloodlust, and if he has the Bloodlust, he would just die if he played the Nourish in the previous turns. Oh, and there's the Starfall Gallon. Big pickup. Now he can really start dealing with this board. Play the Nourish together with the Starfall if he wants to.
You could also play Cenarius. Cenarius trade over the 3/4.
What to do?
But it's pretty weak to Bloodlust, though. Only problem is Starfall is not that great versus Bloodlust either. You're still leaving up a lot of 1/1s. I guess you're leaving up only 5 1/1s, so if you get like something good off of your Worthy Expedition.
I'm not sure how much you should consider this, but you also clear a lot of the more expensive minions, right, for a potential Evolve pick from Lee.
Yep.
You clear the Mogu Flesh Shaper, which in worst case now could give a Octasari, for example, or a Ragnaros.
That is really important.
And I think that is something that Bloodyface really wants to pay respect to, and he is deciding to pay respect to.
Casper, we're going to the dreaded turn 10 for Bloodyface soon.
Yeah, and Judah Thought is definitely not seeing plays.
Lee, just dead turn after dead turn.
Yeah, but this is what happens with the Shaman deck sometimes. It has a bit of inconsistency to it with the Desert Hare Evolve, or being very reliant on the Desert Hare Evolve combo. And he didn't manage to pick up any of the finishers, really. The deck is based around a lot of token generation, right? And you have the finishers with the Evolve and the Bloodlusts. And he didn't pick up any of it, not even the Spirit of the Frog, which is supposed to help him to get into these cards.
Yeah, I mean, Spirit of the Frog is the main draw engine of the deck. Having it early is so critical because you get to cycle through, not only do you get to cycle through all your spells to those things like Evolve, Soul of the Murlocs, but you also get rid of some of the less powerful cards from your deck. So after you go through that draw engine with Spirit of the Frog, your deck is also just full of better cards.
And Lee not looking too happy here. He realized that he's in a pretty rough spot right now, and still just hoping for an Evolve public. But Bloodyface just doesn't have the clear still. So it's still there's a possible game to win, I think, with a potential Evolve or a Evolve.
I think it's still possible. I also imagine that if Bloodyface had picked that Coon, this game would have just been entirely locked out. There's a Starfall.
Maybe the Druid of the Claw actually gets to see the play now, Galen. What do you think?
Yeah, you think that's a lot better than Coon, Starfall, Coon, Cenarius? That sounds a lot better than Coon, Starfall, Coon, Cenarius.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a 4-6 in play than
My Starfall
than a
Druid of the Claw
7-7,
beats your
a
Coon
3-4,
Starfall Coon
20 armor.
something.
Oh, actually, a 9-9, a 5-6, 20 armor, a 5-8, and 2 4-4s. That sounds way worse than a Druid of the Claw.
Okay, Galen, I hear you.
I'm being a little bit sarcastic.
Probably right. Anyways,
well, we
what do you
agreed
think
on it.
bloodyface is doing here? I think he just wants to clear the board at this point.
No, Starfall is still a huge pickup. This is going to lock Lee out of the game if he does not pick up an Evolve right now.
And no, it's
Evil
not an
Totem
Evolve.
doesn't do it.
I think that spells the end for this game, and Lee's
Gotta load up the board. Hope for the best. He's just killing the 4-6.
Mortals are so squishy.
Yeah, I think that this is the point where it becomes interesting, right? With the best of 5 now, because now I'm very curious to see if...
There's a Coon.
Oh, there's a Coon, yeah.
Coon.
It's very over, Galen.
The game is now very over.
He managed to pick up 2 Coons this game from the Worth Expedition.
If you're unaware
wanted
what I was
to.
talking about, we're about to see the power
another
of
Coon. So this is a very recent addition to the deck with
This is just a reasonable turn of Hearthstone.
the new expansion, and it's, as you can see, very powerful, this Coon thing that is happening right now. And Lee just out of the game, basically.
Oh, good game.
Yeah, and there's the Evolve, just to make Lee a bit more sad there.
Feels bad,
Hopefully he
man.
doesn't care too much about that, but this game is clearly over now, and Lee looking to sweep the Combo Priest now, I think. Which I think is very possible with the 2 decks he has left.
That's very true. Bloodyface up 2-1 in this best of 5. Now remember, just because he has 2 games under his belt, that does not mean that he is advancing. He still needs to win 1 more with his Combo Priest. Like Hunter Ace was saying, this may be the weak point of Bloodyface's lineup. Lee still has a couple powerful decks versus Combo Priest, and it'll be interesting to see how these next matches will play out.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it too, and I think that Lee's lineup specifically thrives after this best of 5 stage, where he actually gets to see the full potential of both the Rogue and the Shaman, with being able to face the Combo Priest also in the best of 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Vendetta Rogue specifically against Combo Priest. I've been playing this matchup a lot myself, and it feels like the addition of Swashbuckler, we've been talking about this all weekend, the addition of Swashbuckler has made stuff like Underbelly Fence and Vendetta so much more powerful, specifically against a deck like Combo Priest, where a 2-mana 3/4 with Rush, that just like destroys their entire strategy.
Yes, correct. And it's a bit different with Lee's version exactly, because I think it's very different from a lot of the other versions. He includes cards like Eviscerate, Questing Adventure, and he also doesn't run what Fino ran earlier with
Spirit of the Shark.
Spirit of the Shark, correct.
Yeah, I mean, so Lee still has Rogue and Shaman left versus Priest, but that'll be in the future. We have to go to a quick break for now, but stay with us. Some more exciting games of Hearthstone coming your way.
BlizzCon 2019 is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of BlizzCon. Facebook Gaming, a world of play. Samsung SSD, performance gamers trust. Corsair, do your thing. And by NVIDIA.
My name is Brian Neeson. My battle tag is Bloodyface. Ever since I started playing Hearthstone, I always wanted to make it to the big stage, and I've played for the last 3 or 4 years. But I always wanted to play at BlizzCon since the original World Championship was at BlizzCon, so it's really cool to go there. I've never been before, so it's going to be exciting, not only as a player, but also as a spectator. I really love the game. I come from a background of playing the World of Warcraft TCG, and Hearthstone reminded me a lot of that. I got a coding job for a while and still played Hearthstone, but I always felt like the coding job was taking time away from Hearthstone, not the other way around. So yeah, I dropped that and pursued Hearthstone. It's worked out so far. If you want to do what I did and leave your job for professional gaming, you have to be ready to make a lot of sacrifices, not only for money You know, I knew I had the natural talent, at least I thought I did, but I also wanted to make sure I got the results. And what that basically meant was just playing an unbelievable amount of Hearthstone, just pretty much nonstop, and just making sure that I'm putting more hours in than anybody else. Grandmasters this season has been, I would say, relatively easy for me. I mean, it felt really good to beat purple in the reverse sweep. Well, the first thing that popped into my mind when I was down 0-2 was a flashback to Fall Championship against Semifinal in top 8. And I started out down 0-2, but I managed to reverse sweep him. So, you know, when I was down 0-2 against purple, I kind of thought the same thing. It's like, well, even though I'm down 0-2, the match isn't over yet. I'm really excited to go to BlizzCon. You know, competing in Grandmasters has been amazing, but it kind of lacks that big stage presence feel. I mean, it means a lot to represent the Americas, and more specifically the US of A. Especially going back to Worlds in 2018 after Just Saying and Language Hacker got eliminated. I kind of felt like I was holding the torch, trying to win the title for America. But I fell short against Hunter-Ace, and that was very disappointing. So, you know, in the global finals, I'm definitely going to try my best to win it all for America. The goal of the tournament's to win. Not really happy with any other finish.
Is it prep?
Oh,
Welcome back to day 2 at BlizzCon. We are in our second to last match in the Hearthstone Global Finals. Bloodyface versus Lee. Bloodyface is currently up 2-1 after winning with Druid against a pretty lackluster Evolved Shaman start.
yes, and that is what happened. We haven't really seen that side of Evolved Shaman too much this weekend, I would say, but it's definitely a possibility and a risky run into when you play the deck that sometimes you just don't get the powerful Evolve, and that kind of is what carrying the deck right now, I feel, and you're very dependent on drawing it, but it's also very likely to draw it, so you don't see those scenarios too often.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of scenarios where Lee just takes away that game if you got in the Spear of the Frog or Evolve way earlier than what happened. I think it would have been fine. It was a little bit disheartening at the very end when the Evolve comes in as the final card to just kind of rub it in his face that the game just did not pan out. But we do have word of what's going to happen next. And I think Lee is going to be favored in the next couple series that he has to play. Bloodyface will be on Priest for the remainder of this match, but Lee is going to be queuing his Rogue into this Priest. And Rogue is actually one of the more powerful decks versus combo Priest right now. The new update has made it just a lot more powerful and consistent at dealing with the Priest's early board. And Priest really hasn't gotten much for the latest update.
I would actually argue that Lee currently has the 2 best decks in the game versus Combo Priest. Even though Combo Priest is a very, very strong deck and has been tearing through a lot of tournaments recently, I think that these 2 matchups are the matchups that are the worst for it.
Yeah, I mean, Combo Priest has kind of taken a step down as the best deck. It's now maybe considered the 2nd or 3rd best deck. You know what's the best deck? Evolve Shaman. Lee has Evolve Shaman for Game 5, potentially.
Yes, he does. And first he has to get through with this Rogue, though. And interestingly enough, Lee now, only player in the tournament with Edwin van Cleef. And speaking of Edwin van Cleef, in his hand right now, has won every single championship. And will this be the first championship where Edwin van Cleef doesn't win, Galen?
Maybe, but there's always the technicality that this is not actually the World Championship, it is the Global Championship, so you can always like finagle a way to say, oh, Edwin's always won Worlds, and then you have to add like the little asterisk, like.
True, I guess.
So, the Edwin apologists out there, can still get away with by saying that.
Yeah, and how do you think both players are going to approach this now? They both have some interesting mulligans. bloodyface with the injured Blademaster Circle, which is always a very debatable keep, because it's a very strong combo, but it's also a lot weaker than a lot of the things you can do with the Priest, and a lot of the time people tend to not keep it.
It's really weak to sap, but from the rogue side, you often don't keep sap early on. It's just... Oh.
That's a very interesting keep by bloodyface, I would say. It's a super greedy keep with keeping 2 free drops and the Circle of Healing. I'm very surprised by that, to be honest.
That is a bit interesting.
Oh, and Lee with the Blinkfox Vendetta. That's a big hand from Lee, and I think that's exactly what he wants to see in this game.
Wait a second. I think bloodyface keep might actually work out in his favor based on what's happening so far. Coin Injured Blademaster into Injured Blademaster Circle into Psycho Pump.
Well, let me tell you what Lee has. He has Blinkfox Vendetta into Backstab Vendetta.
But then there's a Psycho Pump that summons a 4/7 with Reborn.
Well, we don't know what Lee has for the upcoming turns after that yet, but yeah, you're right. There is the Psycho Pump.
Well, if the game ended right now and these were the cards that players could play with, I think Lee would be behind. That's not really how Hearthstone games work, though.
That's true, right? You have a deck and you draw cards from your deck, so we'll see how all of that pans out.
We're really over-explaining how Hearthstone works right now.
Yeah, we really are. Oh, and there's the Sap, though, a very big pickup versus
like we're saying,
bloodyface specific hand. And
you draw cards in Hearthstone.
Galen, I think that with this draw, it just totally flipped up, and now it would always be Lee on this side, I think.
Based on how bloodyface plays his next turns, I have to imagine you're correct.
Yeah, and also the Shadow of Death pickup might be a pretty big one for the future.
Ooh,
if
that is
bloodyface decides
interesting
to
swing.
Go in on Inner Fire play or potentially play the Bone Samni later in the game.
Yep, Shadow of Death deals very well with Inner Fire. A lot of times in this matchup, you have to forego a Divine Spirit combo to just try to push damage over 2 turns by making like a 14-14 instead of a 28-28. Shadow of Death stops that
Questing Adventure, specific for Lee's deck here, a very big draw. He can pair that together with the Backstab and the Vendetta to just pile on the pressure together with a Questing Adventure that just keeps on growing every single turn. Lee looking in a great spot right now.
Yeah, I can't think of a better draw in Lee's spot.
Yeah, I actually think it's just better than Edwin Van also, because this will just get bigger and bigger, and I don't think bloodyface has an efficient answer except the Silence, which he only has one of in the deck.
And Silence would answer Edwin anyway, so it's just, you're right, it's just a better Edwin.
And bloodyface in a rough spot now. He has to play the Psycho Pump, but that will get brutally punished by this
This
sap that is
sap
coming
is
up.
so good. That underbelly fence is so good. Well, maybe not this turn, but it's so good.
Yeah, I would even consider playing it here just to buff your Questing Avenger even further. Maybe just trading in your 1-2 at this point. Don't care too much about it, but I think it's very valuable to just get it out here.
Theoretically, the most amount of damage to push next turn would involve playing Dagger this turn, I believe. You could technically have the underbelly. You could technically Dagger next turn instead of underbelly fence next turn. You'd end up
But
with
then
the same.
underbelly fence can't attack face though, which is also a factor into that.
Underbelly fence can attack face, but it also wouldn't be able to attack a minion.
Or
if you
potentially a
played it
taunt
this,
minion,
if
right?
you played it this turn. If underbelly fence, well, anyways, it's marginal.
All right, but
the Dagger looks really
Lee is definitely sapping this turn. The thing he's thinking about is what we have been talking about, which is if he wants to Dagger or if he wants to underbelly fence, which both kind of line up a bit differently, I would say, and I'm curious to see what he ends up doing.
Electing to play the underbelly fence. Buffs his Questing Adventure like you're saying.
Also curious to see if he does the trade here, and he decides to go for the trade, which makes him a bit more vulnerable to Pyromancer, but he also sets up a lot more damage, which potentially pushes for the lethal next turn over.
Lots to consider. It's looking pretty rough for bloodyface.
Yeah,
The only thing I see...
We kind of have to play a taunt also, right? So we maybe play the Circle of Healing together with both the injured cards and go from there. But there's this Questing Adventure on board, just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. It's rough, man.
You gotta kill the 6/6, but you can't kill the 6/6.
Yeah.
Wild Pyromancer Acolyte Circle of Healing could find you a silence. You silence the questing adventurer, but even then, you're still leaving Lee with so much on board. There is a perfect scenario draws where bloodyface could, if he wanted to, deal with the questing adventure.
Yeah, but it seems very unlikely at this point. To be noted though, Lee currently has 0 playable cards in his hand. Or actually that is not true, because he could technically Shadow Death this questing adventure, but realistically he doesn't have
you're
any
talking
playables.
about no more stuff in his hand?
Oh, but there's the Myra's Unstable Element.
Well, let me bring you in.
And here we go. A bunch of cards in his hand, it appears.
This might just be lethal this turn. He can
I think
Shadow
this,
Step.
Shadow Step
his
and
3/4
Shadow Step.
twice.
This is definitely
This
lethal,
is
Galen.
so much more than lethal.
It's what we like to call Giga Lethal.
That's what you like to call it.
Okay, Galen. Act like you don't call it that either.
How much is this worth?
Giga Lethal is apparently we like to call it from Lee's side. I think this is going to even it up to 2-2. We're going to go into the final game. Bloodyface will be on Priest and Lee will be on his Evolved Shaman.
Yeah, and Lee's on the Evolved Shaman, and that is the deck that we've been seeing people protect. So, assuming Lee is in a pretty great position now and very confident going into this last one.
But as casters love using small sample sizes to determine things, he struggled on that last Evolved Shaman game. So maybe that happens again.
That is a possibility, Galen, and it's only one game, right? And anything could really happen. But I think that Lee is in a very good position now, and Shaman, especially versus the Combo Priest, is just a pretty solid matchup. And I think that if Lee manages to get up the Evolve and pilots it well, I think he's in a very great position now.
Yeah, if I was putting my chips down to bet on someone, I'd bet on Lee, I think. Evolve Shaman versus Priest, it's traditionally favored, I believe. The Desert Hair Evolve combo is just so powerful against what Priest wants to do. Priest wants to fight early, Shaman fights earlier. Shaman is probably going to come out ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be a very big match. This is for the finals in the global finals, Galen. And you know how big of a deal it is to come there, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this really quickly because they're fighting right now, not only for $50,000, but the chance at getting an extra $100,000 and being the title of global champion. We're going to go to a quick break before Game 5, the last game of the semifinals and the last game to determine who will be in the championship. But stay tuned with us. The next game will be incredibly exciting. Thank you so much for watching. Be right back.
BlizzCon 2019 is brought to you by T-Mobile. Their newest signal goes farther than ever, and it's built 5G ready. MSI, True Gaming. Intel, the official CPU partner of BlizzCon. And by HyperX, we're all gamers.
Is this the end? Our heroes can't fly. They fall like shooting stars. Will anyone survive? Dragons take flight above the ice and snow. High in the sky where the cold wind blows. Wings beat down as the feedback falls. Flaming hot fire over frozen bones. Good unites against people they oppose. They ride or die as the legends grow. We must go to sense to the heroes. There are no silence in this combat zone. Beats midair, yeah, it's a chiller. Life and death, yeah, it's a killer.
Bloodyface versus Lee, Game 5. Who will go home with $50,000 and a tale of regret? And who will get one step closer to making their mark on Hearthstone history? We will find out in this Combo Priest versus this Evolved Shaman game coming up. Bloodyface on Priest, Lee on Shaman. Casper, tell me about this upcoming match.
So this is going to be, I think, a very close one. And it's a very classic matchup recently. Combo Priest versus Evolved Shaman, one of the most popular matchups on ladder recently, in high legend ladder at least. And it's a very close one. And I think a lot of people think that it's super favored for the Evolved Shaman, but I've also heard from expert Combo Priest players that they think that they have a very good shot in it. So we'll see how it ends up panning out. But I definitely think from an outside perspective, Lee should have a very good shot in this matchup.
You know, I'm going to have the expert perspective that I think Evolved Shaman is very favored versus Combo Priest. It just has a lot of tools to fight in the early game that Priest often can't really deal with. Stuff like Mogu Flesh Shaper just by itself answers a lot of what Bloodyface wants to do, and the fact that you can have that mutate, have that evolve to back that extra punch. Oftentimes, the Combo Priest will find themselves in a spot where they just cannot answer at the Evolved Shaman board. That being said, that doesn't always happen. We've seen games before. We actually saw Lee in a couple matches ago have one of the worst Shaman starts of the entire tournament. If things like that happen, Combo Priest could easily find a win.
Yes, also a card that often isn't necessarily that good in all the other matchups, but is especially good in this specific matchup versus the Combo Priest, is the inclusion of Lickham, which just deals so efficiently with all of Priest early game, and I think that is a big reason to why Token Shaman is considered favored in this matchup.
So from the Priest side, what are like the general game plans that you want in the early game?
So from the Priest side, it's pretty standard. You just want to try to get ahead and have your powerful early game with the Cleric, with the Injured, and potentially following up with this big Psycho Pump press. The way that you beat Shaman is just doing too much, so they can't keep up with it. The second that the Shaman gets the time to wait a turn and get their powerful Desert Hare Evolve and Mogu Flesh Shapers out, it's already too late, I think, for the Priest, and it's really just a board game.
So to break it down, early Northshire Clerics, or you could go for something like Injured Tolvier and a Psycho Pump. Those are like the two leading strategies in this deck.
Yes, normally the way this matchup pans out is that Priest has to put on the pressure in the early game, and they don't really have a comeback, so if they don't do that, they lose. But if they manage to put on the pressure, they're in a very good spot, I think.
Bloodyface has one of the most powerful hands you can have as Combo Priest, and Lee has one of the weakest hands you can have as Evolved Shaman. Double Northshire Cleric.
Injured Trollver and a Light Warden Gallon. That's what he has right now.
The answer to is somebody injured is yes. Injured Tolvier and Lee.
Lee is gonna be injured. Let me tell you that, Gallon. All right, so Bloodyface here already with a little decision he has going ahead of him here. He could potentially go double Cleric, or he could go Cleric Life Warden, or he can go Injured Tolvier. And he can also decide to take it even slower and just go to Cleric. What do you think, Gallon, is the play here?
There's a lot to keep in mind. I think that taking a slower approach right now is probably up Bloodyface's alley. You don't really know exactly what's going to be happening next. So something like Injured Tolvier here, not committing your draw engine in the Northshire Cleric makes a lot of sense to me. I think Bloodyface coin Injured is just a consistent play. It's powerful and it doesn't give up your best cards.
What he leaves him a bit vulnerable here to is the potential of Lee just going a Lightning Bolt. And a problem that can appear then is that there is no injured minions anymore, so he might not be able to get the value of these clerics that he really wants.
That is true, but if Lee Lightning Bolts the 2-3, that means that Bloodyface often is going to have both of his clerics next turn just stay alive. Now, Lee could top deck a Lickham, or just have it in his hand, but if one of Bloodyface's clerics lives, suddenly he can just Divine Spear protected from pretty much everything Lee wants to do.
And the way that these pans kind of pan out versus each other now is that Bloodyface is probably going to start developing these clerics, but Lee doesn't really have an answer to it or something to develop, so the clerics doesn't really get any value. So we'll see if this can go like really far.
Bloodyface decides to develop the Light Warden instead of the second Cleric, and it's going to get a bit punished by the Zap, I think. That being said, Bloodyface can play the second Cleric, hit into the Evil Totem, and heal to draw 2.
Yeah, and Lee here already with a very important decision of whether or not he decides to play the Evil Totem, potentially opening up for a heal target for Bloodyface, which he currently really wants Lee to do.
Yeah, it seems like I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The other option would be to try to roll for a Spell Power Totem and deal with the 1-3.
Well, that is a potential option, and it would be very good if it pans out for him, but it's ambitious, Gallon, let me tell you that.
Well, the other thing about it is, if he rolls a healing totem, bloodyface can really benefit from that.
That is also true. It's a thing that happens sometimes in this matchup where you don't think about it, but suddenly there's just a healing totem on your board, healing a bunch of minions while your opponent has a cleric, and then you just draw a bunch of cards. Lee clearly thinking a lot about this though, and he doesn't even decide to play the sap. He wants to save it for a potential Thunderhead, I guess, later, or just dealing with a cleric. Not playing the sap here makes bloodyface able to deal with the totem also though, with training in the life warden after healing.
Without having to use the silence.
Yep. And I imagine bloodyface will just bank in on his clerics now. It seems incredibly strong to do that.
I have a quick question for you. How important is silence in this matchup?
It's not the most important card, that's for sure.
Is there ever a world where you leave up the totem by silencing it? Like you trade your Light Warden in, you heal.
Or you trade your cleric in.
No, you trade your Light Warden in, you heal up your heal up the totem. You leave yourself with a 3/2, but you also leave a totem in play.
Yeah, but you trade a cleric, so then you can push 3 damage.
You could damage it again. That's what I'm. It's sure.
Yeah, Gallon.
Sure. The more I think about it, the more the more right you are.
Anyways, it doesn't matter too much, and bloodyface decided not to go for play. It was a very interesting line though, and I don't think it was too bad, but also a consideration that he has to have when he thinks about that is that if he leaves up the totem, Lee could potentially go with the Mogu Flesh Shaper prepared to get it with a mutate and explode the board that way, and I think that was very risky from bloodyface's perspective there.
There's so many things that you had to play around.
And Lee here not in a very good position. He has to scramble through, and another struggling draw here for Lee, not picking up the combos he wanted. This time around, he has the Evolve, he has the Bloodless, but he doesn't have the token generation that he needs.
This is about the best spot that bloodyface could be in going into this game. Do you think an Evolve could even come out here?
Wow, I'm surprised. This was not a good Evolve.
It seems like it's using a lot of resources. An Ominous picked up.
Yes, and I'm like wondering, what is Lee playing towards? Because now her hand does almost nothing, right? And even the Desert Hero top deck wouldn't do anything, or a Mogu Flesh Shaper top deck.
Maybe he was hoping for something like double Millhouse Mana Storm, or a Doomsayer.
But even then,
yeah, it's not that good. It's not that good.
I think I would disagree with Lee's play here, and I think he should think more ambitious here and think towards his potential draws here. This seems to almost never get there versus anything. It does put on pressure, but what are you even going to draw to keep this up? With your
I have to agree with you. I have to agree with you. I think that the ways you win this game involve something like Mogu Flesh Shaper Evolve or Desert Hair Evolve, not Voltaic Burst and Soul of Murlocs Evolve.
And bloodyface now just trying to capitalize on these clerics to full potential. He saw that Lee with the very, very weak Evolve there, so he probably has a pretty good hand on what Lee's hand could potentially be at this point.
He knows there's a Lackey in there. Those generally are pretty low impact. Not bad, but they're generally pretty low impact.
He also knows that there is a kept card with the sap, which Lee did keep. So I wonder what he thinks that is at this point. Maybe he thinks it's a second Evolve because he played the Evolve so aggressively there. I think that's a very reasonable read he can make.
At the same time, good players often play the cards that they keep so the opponent cannot get a read on their hand.
But there's always the next step to that, where you don't play the card you keep, because then you don't have to play around it.
So what you're saying is, if Lee did keep a second Evolve, he would play the one that he didn't keep. So
well, that depends on how he thinks bloodyface.
It's a lot of logic. It's like a Sicilian death match, you know.
It goes far if you really think about it. But yeah,
for not that much extra, not that much extra benefit.
But Lee here just struggling, not picking up the combinations that you really need with this Evolved Shaman deck, and real struggle here. I mean, especially versus bloodyface, super aggressive draw is really rough for him.
His hand is just dead. Bloodyface has something like High Priest on that beaming sidekick next turn to just almost lock out the game, barring some great mutate for Lee. I'm talking Mogu Flesh Shaper into Octasari is the kind of stuff that needs to happen right now for Lee to get back in this game. If Bloodyface wants, he can just topsy-turvy this spell power totem so it dies.
And it's dead.
Yeah, kill it so it's dead.
But it said to silence it instead of her.
That also works. You save the topsy-turvy for...
It is not dead then, though. So he decides to do this, though, but because he has the Divine Spirit in hand and Topsy just pressures, has so much potential of damage next turn.
I mean, you were talking about how silence is just not that critical in this matchup, so why not save the topsy-turvy for this Divine Spirit combo that you have lined up for the next turn? I think it makes a lot of sense from Bloodyface's spot to use the silence instead of the topsy-turvy, even though the topsy-turvy seems like an immediate and cleaner response.
Also, a very interesting storyline I want to bring up right now is that Bloodyface currently, this is the first matchup against a Chinese player this tournament, so Bloodyface might be the player now to just reverse sweep the Chinese participants in defeating Lee now first and then facing Lion in the finals.
I mean, based on what's happening right now, that might happen.
Yeah, it looks very good for Bloodyface right now, and that means that NA would have a representative in the finals also, which is huge.
He's got damage. He's got buffs. He's got value in the form of Wansamdi, and every single minion that he gets from now on can have upwards of like 18 health.
What does he not have, Galen?
A win.
But it's coming real quick.
Yeah.
And I can't really see how Lee comebacks here. It's just showing the worst sides of the Evolve Shaman now, the inconsistencies of the deck. And Lee just really having the rough end.
I mean, for Bloodyface at this point, he might be going to the finals pretty soon. Oh, Spirit of the Frog. That is one of the only things that Lee could top deck right now that could give him something. But the problem is the only cards he has to activate will evolve the Spirit of the Frog.
Yeah, is there any
He's only going to get one card.
Yeah, he is only going to get one card.
What do you get with one card?
I'm thinking about it, Galen.
Nada.
Maybe he can evolve into the new
Zilch.
4-mana 8/8.
Zero.
The new 4-mana 8/8 that's coming next expansion, Galen. What about that one?
That's not here yet.
But next expansion, it will be here.
So we just need to wait like several months or weeks. I'm not sure on the release of that.
Yeah, I don't think really.
Stall it out, Lee.
I don't really think there is too much, but Lee really digging deep here and trying to figure out if there's anything. There's a lot of different minions in Hearthstone, and there might be one that we're missing out on right now that could potentially get him back in the game here. And Lee's definitely trying to figure out if there is.
I mean, you're looking at weaponized Pinata, for example, as being an out that could possibly get Lee out of this game. And even that, you'd have to get some weird legendary Toki the Time Tinker into Yogg-Saron, and that's just not...
That would be a potential. That would be pretty epic, not gonna lie.
It's not gonna happen.
There was a potential of it happening, like a 0.00001 or something.
Yep.
But yeah, not happening.
24 damage for Bloodyface right now. That's not enough to lock out the game.
Yeah, but at this point, it's just a formality. He is going to lock out this game. It's just a matter of when. And Lee just sticking in here, seeing if there's something that can happen that can potentially change this.
Circle of Healing.
Big draw from Bloodyface. Will he manage to pick up the lethal here? Oh, there's the Divine Spirit, and that is lethal, I believe. If he manages to do it correctly.
You have to be careful.
And the Divine and the Inner Fire.
There we go, man.
Yeah, he has it. If he manages to do this correctly, I think it is lethal. Yeah, it's definitely lethal.
No.
Yes,
Divine Spirit.
That's 26. That's 26 damage plus 1+1+1. That is lethal.
No, it is not.
Wait, isn't it? What? How's it not lethal?
If you Divine Spirit first, it goes to 26 minus 1. That's 25.
But we have the Circle of Healing also, right? I'm pretty sure that was lethal, Galen.
No. He had 13 health with 3 damage. If he doubles it, it goes to 26 minus 1 down to 25. 25 plus 3 is 28. Lee started the turn with 29
But
health.
we had
28 is clearly not 29, as Fino so miserably showed us in that previous
there's
Priest
both
game.
a power
Don't
shield.
make a mistake here, Bloodyface. Just go for the highest tempo line, lock out the game. I think what Bloodyface did was beautiful, and I'm going to stick by it. He did not have lethal. There may have been a lethal with the Circle of Healing, but that would have to involve doing math on how the Circle of Healing adjusts the numbers. But I believe it goes to 14 health. The Yama goes to 14, it goes back down to 13, so I don't think the Circle actually was lethal.
It was lethal, but anyways, I think that Bloodyface line is totally reasonable. He doesn't have to do it.
If you Divine Spirit first, potentially.
Yeah, you also have the power shield, right, which he had the mana to use there.
For the Topsy Turvy, sure.
Yeah.
But that specific one wasn't lethal.
Yeah, but at this point, he's just 100% to win the game, right?
Yeah,
so
yes.
if he thinks that there's a risk there with playing the circle fleeing, potentially overdrawing your entire deck,
Bloodyface
fatiguing a million, and he just decides to go for the safe line.
In the grand finals, $100,000 underneath his belt, and a chance at becoming the global champion.
That's big, Galen. That's very big.
That is huge.
Especially Bloodyface after getting to the quarterfinals in the World Championships earlier this year. Now with the repeat performance, getting to the finals. Very impressive from Bloodyface, and I think that he will have a very big shot now versus Lion in the finals of just taking the entire championship.
And you have to remember that Bloodyface found himself in the loser's bracket at the start of day one. He started 0-1, had to fight 2 games through losers to get here. That must be so stressful, and he's managed to get through, I'd say, relatively unscathed in terms of play. Lee, on the other hand, walks away with $50,000, and not the trophy, but I have to say he's shown an impressive performance here. I think the games that he played, they really were not him making any errors. The Evolved Shaman games were some of the worst draws that we've seen all tournament, and we know how powerful Evolved Shaman could be. So I think it may have been a little bit of bad luck, but also a little bit of great play from Bloodyface that locked out that game.
Yeah, I totally agree there. We saw the worst sides of the Evolved Shaman, and that is a shame to see, but that just happens sometimes. And I think that Bloodyface managed to capitalize so much on that draw, and deservingly taking the final spot here.
Yeah, I mean, Bloodyface just played that last game slow and steady, going for a coin-injured Tolvier instead of Northshire Cleric Lion, which I love. I think he played his resources about as well as possible versus what Lee had, and it paid off pretty immaculately. He finds himself in the finals, an extra $50,000.
And the potential of taking it all, Galen, which is even bigger.
That is so great. NA.
And we're getting some cheering from the crowd for NA.
Yeah, let's hear it up for Bloodyface. All right, we have the finals coming up shortly. We have to go to a quick break, but don't leave. We have the most important game of all of this entire tournament coming up. Thank you, guys.
BlizzCon 2019 is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of BlizzCon. Facebook Gaming, a world of play. Samsung SSD, performance gamers trust. Corsair, do your thing. And by NVIDIA,